Okay.
Hi there, welcome back to my beautiful channel. I'm so thrilled to be interviewing the legend, the one and only Pat Vegas from the historical legendary band Redbone. Welcome, Pat. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so delighted to get you back on. I know we had a few technical issues last year, and so we're attempting again, and this time we're better planned. So Pat,
Yes.
it's quite remarkable that the level and the layer of music that you brought to this planet, the light that you and the other guys shone. Just want to give people a quick, those that haven't been aware of Redbone, which is very seriously worrying if they haven't, but Redbone
Okay.
started in LA. Everyone knows the song "Come Get Your Love," "Come Get Your Love." Love it, love it. So Pat, give us a little bit of information, like what inspired you to create this band, Redbone, with your brother Lolly?
Yes. Well, we've been playing nightclubs for so long. I mean, at least 5 years, 6, 7 years at the same nightclub, Gazzari's on the Strip, and I just felt that it was time to move on. So we gave up the club act and went into rehearsals and started rehearsing on our own. Putting together our own sound, our own band, so that we could expose it to the world. And we rehearsed for over almost 2 years, just rehearsing day in and day out, and and a lot of things came into play at that time. One of them was that I had these doctor meetings, for my health and my mind, and they used to take me into this room. I'd walk in, and it was sort of strange, like I was on a spaceship or something. I'd walk in, and they'd lay me down and put these long tubes down my nose on each side. The guys would walk in with these white masks and outfits, and carrying this big, heavy, I guess it was lead container, lead made of lead, and they'd open it up, and smoke would come out. And I was just young, and they'd pull these long things, and they'd go down my nose, and I'd have to lay there for an hour with these tubes down my nose, and just lay there, and they'd ask me questions and stuff, and we talked a lot, and I did these several times, you know, and it really was interesting.
It's fascinating, and I know that from what you shared with me on this particular story that was part of your life as a child, that you were a very sickly child, you would be quite unbalanced, and your
Yes,
mother took you secretly, never discussed it, took you
yes,
here over several times, several visits, and
yes,
you know your mother was doing her best to get you well. Do you think
yes.
you were going on board a spaceship, or just a
It
high-tech level lab?
it was very high tech. It was like real. I mean, all I saw was these two guys with these white robes, and carrying this heavy lead container. When they opened it up, it smoke came flying out of it, and stuff. And I was a little bit, you know, nervous about it. And then they said relax, and then they put these tubes on my nose, and I and I and I laid there for an hour or more, because I was losing flesh. My skin was peeling, and uh,
Mm.
and I was going through all kind of physical changes, and I think this helped me a lot.
That's
You know,
beautiful. You know, you
yeah.
said as well, you literally lost an entire layer of skin, like the first layer of all of your skin. How old were you, and what was it like?
I think I was like 7 or 8 years old. I was 6 years old, and it just was really frightening to me as a kid. I mean, because I was losing, my skin was falling off, and I was feeling very, very disoriented. I mean, dizzy, and I couldn't catch my balance most of the time. And
Wow.
it was really, really, really hard for me at the time.
Wow. Well, amazing. But you came through and you got stronger and then went
Yes,
in eventually. Tell us about the first instruments that you played and why did you select those particular instruments?
Well, in the first place, I was also a guitar player, like Lolly was. He was a guitar player, and so was I. I started out on guitar, and we looked, and he looked, and we looked, and looked, and tried to find a bass player to play with him. With the way because he played very different. He finger picked the guitar. He didn't use the guitar pick that much. And so 'cause after a year of trying to find a bass player, I had to switch to bass, and I started playing bass because I knew exactly what he was playing, and now he played it in the sound. So I'd have to play bass in a different mode than normal. I had to use more than one note at a time. Because that's how he played chords, how he played guitar, and it matched. It made sense.
Wonderful.
So I stuck with it.
What was it like growing up with your mum and dad? Did they influence your musical talents in any way?
Yeah, when I was young, like I got a chemistry set for Christmas, and it was a real modern chemistry set, beautiful. And I was sitting in the couch inside the house, playing with it, and all of a sudden I put something together, and flames came shooting up, and I set the house on fire, so half the house burned down. I got the spanking of my life. I mean, I got spanked for 3 days straight.
Oh my God. Bless your heart. Oh my God. So you have to learn guitar to pay your way out of it and build a new house.
Yes. So I started playing bass and lolly on guitar, and then it created a sound that was different. The way he played and the way I played, it was different. I couldn't play the normal bass and like a note, I had to play two notes at a time, and stuff. It was really an experience, but I loved it.
So let's focus for a moment on the fact that the band Redbone, you and the guys
Yes.
were Native American and Mexican
Yes.
American, which
Yes.
right back then in those days was really quite unusual, wasn't it?
Yes, there wasn't any band. There was no Native American bands or players or musicians anywhere that I know of at the time, and we were like an oddity, different. Yeah, because we had a friend that used to be a musician that was a great musician. Everybody loved him, and Jimi Hendrix, you know who that is.
Of course,
And
yes.
he used to come and see us play, and he used to say, "Wow, you guys have a sound. You're different." Yeah, because we play differently. And he said, "I want to join the band," and I said, "Yes, great, come on." So he'd get up on stage with us and play with us, and the sound was just incredible. And he loved us, loved Lolly, and he wanted to join us. But the label, which was I think it was Warner Brothers at the time, said if you join them, we're going to cancel your contract and you won't work for another year.
Wow.
They told him, they threatened him to take his contract away and not stand by him. So we thought that would be too big a sacrifice. We said, no, just do your thing and we'll do ours.
How rude.
You know,
Let's talk about Jimmy for a moment. How old was he
yeah.
and how old were you guys? And what were the brand of guitar that you were all playing?
I was at the time I was like 19 or 18 at the time, and he was very young too, and I have a lot of friends from that part of the country, Seattle, where he's from, and it's ironic that the drum we had a drummer by the name of Eddie Summers, a brother that played great, and Wayne Bibby was another drummer. We used them all the time, and they were African American, and we had a great sound, and we'd rehearse. We had this big house where we used to rehearse. A beautiful house that a friend of mine let us use, and we had been rehearsing for a year, and we had this black drummer. It was Wayne Bibby, who was a great drummer, monster drummer, and so one day I came to rehearsal. I parked my car and I got out of the car, and all of a sudden I heard the music playing coming from the house, and I said, "Wow, that's a great drummer." I said, I didn't know who it was, and and I heard him playing, and it sounded so great. I went running in the house to see who it was, and it was Peter DePoe. playing drums with Lolly and Tony, and I couldn't believe it. I said, "That's a great sound, man." So I jumped on bass, and that was it. That was the beginning.
That is wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
Peter told us a story. He said, I came here. I was here to audition with you guys a year ago. He said, but I came in and I heard you guys playing. He said, you scared me to death. He said, I went back to Seattle to practice. So he came back a year later.
That is so great. That is so great. Give us the names for those don't know. Give us the names of your other band members of the original Redbone.
Yes, it was my brother Lolly Vegas, and then there was Tony Bellamy, Tony Avila Bellamy, greatest rhythm guitar player that I ever heard. I mean, unbelievable. And then we had Peter DePoe on drums, who's a full-blooded Cheyenne from Seattle, Washington, and myself, Pat Vegas, on bass. The four of us. We call ourselves the Redbone. But prior to that, we call ourselves the Crazy Cajun Cakewalk Band. And then once we got started, we switched to Redbone.
That's great. And
again, Redbone means half breed, Means if you have Indian blood in you, you're a Redbone. So I call all my friends that were part Indian or Indian, I call them, they're all Redbones. Everybody wanted to be a Redbone.
I bet they did and still do, definitely. A lot of people. It's beautiful. Let's jump across a little bit here. Last weekend, you were in Miami and you received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Seminole tribe. Tell us a little bit about that and why they gave you that award.
Because it was a really touching to me because I didn't know what to expect, but they treated us like with a lot of dignity and class, and really made me feel good and proud to be part Native American. So I'm half Native American. My mom was full-blooded. My dad was Mexican American, so it was a mixture. But I always felt my Indian roots, no matter what I did. And Peter just brought them out more, being with us, and so we the name Redbone fit us perfect because there was a tribe many years ago in Louisiana that they were plowing down the trees and the vegetation there because they wanted to build a housing, build some homes there. And while they were digging there, all of a sudden they discovered these bodies, these skeletons. They're buried in the ground, and there was like 100 or close to 200 of them that they dug up, and they were all red. The bones were red. They weren't white like normal. And I read about and I heard about it, and I said their bones were red. It said yes, it was a tribe in Louisiana, and the tribe must have passed away or something. They died of starvation. They didn't have any food, and so anyway, I said Redbone. I said God. He said I'm going to use that name for the group Redbone in honor of the Native Americans that died there, from starvation. And so I thought it'd be an honor for me to use that name to honor them,
Yeah,
that sacrificed their lives.
What tribe were your parents connected to?
My mom was Yaqui Shoshone Indian and Yaqui. My dad was Yaqui, and my mom was Shoshone. So it was Arizona, My dad was from Arizona. My mom was from Texas.
Wow, wonderful. Yaqui
But so
Shoshone.
we weren't born on the reservation, which I would have loved, but I had all my friends and all my close buddies were all from the reservation, and we had moved outside the reservation. So I was raised outside the reservation, but I always spent my time on the reservation, So it was a contradiction there.
What were your influences musically growing up in your house and the neighboring friends that you hung out with on and off reservation?
Oh, I knew some great players. Great players, just monster players. There was Jimi Hendrix, of course, was one of them.
Beach Boys, Creedence Clearwater.
The Beach Boys, Creedence Clearwater, Tina Turner, Ike Turner, so many musicians. One of them was a musician that used to be a real close friend of mine. He used to come over. Yeah, he used to come over to my house and hang out with me till 6 in the morning. Jim Morrison, you know who that is?
Absolutely, The Doors, the lead singer of The
Yes,
Doors.
yes, and they were playing opposite us at the Zaris. They would be on one stage, they'd play a half an hour, and we'd play an hour. But we kept going back and forth. And also another group was Peter and the Wolves. They were there, and Tony played. He played bass with Peter and the Wolves at the time. But when he heard Lolly and I playing, he used to come on his break. He would come to the stage and plug in on my amp and play with me and Lolly, and that's how we got started.
That has to have felt good. That must have felt so good.
It felt great. It was fantastic. He fit just perfect. Lolly didn't like him at first because he was so good, you know. Lolly just because it was, you know. So we just had to fit in. We had to make it work, and it worked.
Yeah, it was such a legendary time. Tina Turner, Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, you guys, Redbone. I mean, what else was happening? And why do you think there was such an explosion in America at that time of the greatest music that we've heard?
It was like legendary. It was amazing. So many great players on the strip, right there between the Whiskey a Go Go and Gazzari's. There were 3 other clubs in between us, and it all started right there. I mean, musicians from everywhere were coming in and playing these clubs, and right there, just something began to happen, and it was just amazing to see the Doors. Jimmy used to come to my house and hang till 6 in the morning. You know, we'd smoke a little doobie and hang out, and I'd cook breakfast for us, and we just hung out and talk music. And he used to ask me questions. Jim Morrison used to ask me all about playing and how I played like that, and he just wanted to find out how we ticked, how we did what we did, because he was impressed by it and he liked it. And I would sit and we talk for hours. Then I'd drive him. Then he'd get in my car and I'd drive him to the studio at Sunset Sound where he was recording. And he says, I gotta go. I'm recording now. I'll probably be in here till noon tomorrow. He says, thank you for driving me. And so I drive him several times. I'd drive him to the studio at 6 a.m. in the morning, and he'd record with the group. And they were playing something totally different when I first met them. They were playing sort of a hillbilly rock sort of kind of, but it wasn't what they wound up doing as a group. What they so wound up doing was what I was teaching Jim, which was more of a rock, more rock and roll with a Latin rhythm, with a Latin kind of swing to it.
Come on, baby, light my fire.
Yeah, come on, baby, light my fire. For example, that was the style that I showed him that we used to jam and play at my house, and he loved it. And they went from a rock country group to this Latin swing kind of, which was "Baby Light My Fire," which I had a song that was just like that, and that's what came out with "Baby Light My Fire." So they did nothing but that Latin feel, rock feel that they had, that rhythm and chords, yeah.
So it's fair to say that you actually influenced Jim Morrison, aka and the Doors.
Well, the music that they played after that, after we got together and he showed the band, I would say so. I'd say that definitely influenced the group, the sound of the group. Because Jim was a close friend, and you know what? It's funny that after they got that #1 smash hit record, he never mentioned me once. I never heard him mention my name. I never heard him say, Pat Vegas, I used to jam with him, nothing, just disappeared, So I said, good luck.
Oh, bless
Low
you.
battery.
Yeah. Yeah, your picture just came up. Well, I wanted to ask you, when you were initially starting out on rhythm guitar, mastering that, then you switched to bass to back up Lolly and balance that sound. Do you think do you think that something within that musical connection created the sound that you guys developed from switching between rhythm and bass?
Yes, I think it did. It did definitely, because Lolly added a Hammond B3 speaker to his guitar sound. He was coming through an amp, just a regular amp, and I was playing bass, through a regular acoustic bass amp. But then we added the organ B3 speaker to the sound that he was playing, which gave it that organ sounding guitar, that unique sound that we had. And that's what changed. That's when everything changed and became that sound that we had, that we discovered.
Amazing.
And then all of a sudden, a couple of years, a year later, everybody was using an organ speaker for the guitar.
Wow, wow. Wow, you guys really set some trends there. So we can thank the organ B3 for their beautiful, unique sound that Redbone has, and then went on to influence
Thank
others.
you.
So let's talk a little bit about your touring, some of the gigs you did, some of the greatest people that you performed with, next to, went on for. Share some of that legendary stuff with us, please.
We were working at the most popular club in Hollywood at the time. The second popular club was called it was called it was Bazaars. Anyway, but it was a very famous name they used. But Johnny Rivers was playing there at the time, and Johnny Rivers on guitar, right? And I played bass with Johnny. Months before that, we went to Vegas, right? Me, him, and Jim, guitar player Jim Gordon, on drums, and great players, and Burton on guitar, and we played in Vegas for 2 weeks, and Johnny just didn't like what the guitarist was playing, so he'd stop in the middle of a song and turn around and tell him, don't play that, play something else. And we got tired of it. After 2 weeks, we left Vegas and left Johnny Rivers, and we came back to LA.
Wow, incredible. Incredible. So you mentioned obviously Jimi Hendrix and Jim Morrison. Who else?
Yeah.
I know that Aretha Franklin and Tom Jones covered songs of yours, correct?
Yeah, Tina Turner.
And
Tina Turner was playing there too, because I can Tina Turner, and they were great. But yeah, they were fantastic. And her name was Ann, and I used to know her as Ann,
Wow. And what was she like?
She was wonderful. She when I go down there to the house, and they'd make dinner, she'd make dinner for us, and it was run by Ike. Ike ran everything, Ike was he and I would sit on the piano and play different songs, different things on the piano, and Ike was very into it and very, very much influenced, and he loved Redbone, and he loved, of course he loved Tina, and I loved Tina, and things went on and on and on, and Tina and I stayed friends for years.
Oh, that's amazing. How did you learn piano? How?
Oh, just messing with it, if I was somewhere and I needed to tune up, I would tune up with the piano, and I tune up my bass and tune up the guitar, and I just started learning. I just picked it up, and it just became natural to me,
So playing by ear was really the way that you created your musical ability.
It's sort of, yeah. I played piano on a lot on some of the albums that we did. I played keyboards and of course all over the bass, but yeah, piano has always been a strong influence on me. Yeah, and on my solo CDs that I did on my own, I played all the instruments.
Now, unfortunately, I can't play your beautiful music in this interview as much as I would love to, because the Boob Tube bullies look at any reason to take my channel down. But I am going to include all your links underneath. But the music that you are still creating, Pat,
Yes.
is fan-flipping-tastic.
God bless you for that. For
Oh,
saying
God
that.
bless you. It's true. It's true. Estella's been sending me, obviously, for the last few months, your work, and it's astonishing. It's astonishing. Let me ask you a quick question, and not a rude one. How
Okay.
young will you be on your next birthday?
Well, I'd like to say 32.
So would I, darling. So would I.
No, it's not that. I'm not even close to that. No. How will I be? How old will I be? I'll be
83.
83.
Just to highlight you, an 83 years young, vibrant musician, multi-skilled, still creating beautiful music, still putting great music into the field. Guys watching, I cannot wait to include Pat's new work under this, so you can get connected to Pat, you can join his YouTube channel, you can get involved with him and Estella, that you work with darling Estella. And guys, I'm gonna hook you up. I'm gonna hook you up with Pat. But let's continue, because there's just so much else to ask you here. You had your song Wounded Knee banned in America
Yes.
in 1970. Tell us why, please. What is that story?
It came about, when we were watching. Of course, we saw on TV news, Wounded Knee was happening, and the way they were being treated. And I went there and I stood in line with them, and it was terrible, the way they treated us, and treated the Native American, In other words, they're claiming rights to their land, and it's their land, and by inheritance, by law, and they decide, okay, we're going to go drill an oil line right through your land, and you're going to have to accept it. And we didn't. The tribe didn't feel that was right to invade their land and
Of
put their
course.
oil things through,
Of
because
course.
it would influence the children, and everybody.
Yeah.
And we
Well,
didn't think it was right.
and you're right. Just before we move on to the Wounded Knee song, I have to say that, the savages came and destroyed the indigenous settled people of America. They
Yeah.
are the savages, and they rewrote history.
Yes.
Shame on you, assholes. They rewrote history. They treated the indigenous people of America horrifically forever, and they're still rewriting history. And because
Yes.
of that, children in schools are not being taught the history they need to know about how their forefathers treated the indigenous people, how those savages took their beautiful mountain, the 6 grandfathers, and carved their ridiculous faces into it to look down on our indigenous brothers and sisters. Now, as a white person, regardless of color, that makes me so angry still to this very second. I make no apology to anyone watching. If they're offended, then get the hell off my channel, because we need to put these wrongs right, as you know, Pat. So bless you. You're standing in line. Let's tell the story in brief for those that don't know the story of Wounded Knee, and then why you wrote the song, some of the words to the song, and then what happened, please.
Yes. A friend of mine who was a comedian, a very popular comedian by the name of Sandy Barron, who had his own TV show and everything. And he was very popular, and he was a great comedian. He worked with Lenny Bruce. He studied with Lenny Bruce for years and lived with Lenny Bruce. So one day, Sandy comes up to me and says, "Listen, I need a place to stay for the next couple of weeks." So I gave him a place to stay with me, up in the Hollywood Hills, and he wound up staying for almost 2 years with me. So that was good. During that period of time, he watched me writing music and doing my thing, and one day he comes up to me and says, "Pat, I wrote this lyric. I got this idea for a song, and I want to write it with you." And I said, "Yeah, what's the idea?" And he said, "Well, she read me some lyric. I liked the lyric because he was a great lyricist, and I liked it a lot. And I said, yeah, let's do it." So we sat down and we wrote, we were all wounded at Wounded Knee, which was really hard for everybody in the industry to accept, because it was like a no-no, talk about what was going on and how the Indians were being driven off their land, and the oil lines being drawn through, being laid down against their will. So we wrote it, we put it together. I put it together in 5 days, put it together, recorded it, and had it released in 5 days. And the record came out, and everybody loved it. I mean, everybody loved it, except in America, they banned it because of the controversy going on with the Indians and my people and the oil industry. So they banned it in America, but it was the biggest selling record in Europe, and it was on every chart in Europe, every country, #1, and they wouldn't play it here in the U.S. We were all wounded at Wounded Knee was the song.
Wonderful. Well, let's make that song popular again, because the very same atrocities, crimes against humanity, crimes against our brothers and our sisters, still happening. Still, the tosspots
Yes.
that run the American government are still maiming, slaughtering, moving people on, poisoning water. It is still happening. So
Yes.
we need to get that song out again, my love. Make that song big
Yes.
again. Wow, brilliant. Bless your heart. Let me just see. I want to make sure that I've covered everything. I've got so many notes on you, and there are so many very important areas, and we've covered an enormous amount of them. When in 1969, when the song "Come and Get Your Love" was released, how well known were you at that point, and what other great hits had you put out before that?
We were pretty well known, because I mean we'd been making some great albums and great music, and the CBS knew that, so they were promoting it. They were getting ready to launch a big promotional tour for Redbone, and actually make Redbone the #1 group on the label. It was going to be a big giant push for Redbone, which would have pushed us over that line and make us the hottest #1 group in the world. And my brother had gone out the night before and went out to have a drink, and he was sitting there. He said these two guys walked up and started punching on him, trying to beat him up and pick a fight with him. So Lolly jumped off the stool and started fighting with him, and that's when he broke his right hand and his playing hand, and his left hand, and broke his hand. I think what they did was they just stomped on his hand and broke his hand. I think it was purposely a setup, and because he was just sitting there having a beer, and they broke his right hand. So Lolly, not thinking clearly at the time, he was so upset, he called up CBS and canceled our appointment with CBS. We had an appointment to launch us, push us over that hump to the #1 slot. And Lolly canceled the appointment, which was the next day. If he'd have called me and told me about what happened, I would have arranged another friend of mine to come and sit in on guitar and play guitar. And Lolly, all he had to do was just stand there and sing. But he wasn't thinking clearly at the time, I suppose. And he called up CBS and canceled the thing. And then I went to Lolly's and I said, what happened? What happened to appointment with CBS? He said, I canceled it. He took it upon himself to cancel the thing, which really hurt the group, because really set us back, because the label blackballed us, pushed us out of the way, and they brought up a group that they had playing in San Francisco, in one of the nightclubs, and they reached over to one of their groups and brought them up and put them in our place, which was Santana, and they weren't even nowhere near the group that we were musically, but they had to do something, so they brought Santana in, and that's what happened, and we were pushed way back and just out of existence,
That's such a shame. How was your relationship with Lolly after that happened?
It wasn't good. After that, I was so upset with Lolly, because he canceled the most important engagement of our career to but you can't cancel with Bill Graham. You don't cancel with Bill Graham, you know. I mean, he was like the force in music, and all the San Francisco musicians that were coming out of there. You know, we had spent 3 months in San Francisco working at the Peppermint Tree, and all the San Francisco musicians used to come and sit, and our audience would be mostly musicians from San Francisco, and when we played there, and Sly Stone was one of them, and all the groups, all the different people, and my brother canceling that date and not telling me about it really, really hurt us and really set me. I had to start like from the very beginning again, you know, trying to get Redbone back into the picture, because Bill Graham just said they're no these guys, you know, and so we were hurt real bad, you know, as a musician, you know.
You know, when you spoke about the attack on Lolly and said you think it was a setup to destroy, it is so remarkably unnormal for any kind of fight to take place where somebody's hand is stomped on, where their tools for their music, for their life. You know, it just,
It's significant that, I mean, it's really funny that they would break his playing hand, you know, his hand, his cordial. I mean, they could have kicked him anywhere, but no, they broke his hand that he plays guitar with, which really broke Lolly's heart and really upset him, and he was really angry. And I don't think he thought much about what he was doing, but he just canceled, you know. But I think if he'd had time to think about it, he wouldn't have canceled.
Wow.
I wouldn't let him cancel, you know. I would have got somebody else to take his place. I mean, play guitar, and Lolly would just have to sing.
Yeah.
I would never have canceled. Never. Not an important engagement like that. No, I never would have canceled like that. And it was such a shock for Tony, Pete, and I. We just couldn't believe it, that we had an opportunity to play for Bill Graham in person and all the people that run that organization. And he canceled like it was nothing, you know. It was not, he wasn't thinking. He just wasn't clear-headed, you know. He had his hand broken after playing so many years, and it was really heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's very traumatizing and very shocking for that to happen to someone.
Yeah.
Did you get another opportunity after that? Any other big labels approach you, or did you have to keep working and playing until you were noticed again or taken up by anybody else?
Well, we were the hottest group in the country at the time, and getting ready to go over that mountain and be on top, you know, finally, and get to share some music that we had with the world, you know. But when that happened, it set us back so far that I had to go back to playing nightclubs again. I mean, I had to go playing these little dates, anything to keep the band together. But it was such a struggle, you know, that we just couldn't do it. You know, people had to survive and pay their bills and stuff, and it just wasn't. It was very difficult. It's a very bad time for us.
Do you think?
But I kept putting out the music.
Yeah, and to this very day. But do you think, Pat, during that time as well, there was like deliberate sabotage to keep you guys down?
Yeah. Yeah, there was always something, you know, always something like people that I'd known for years, you know, that we had done jobs for and played gigs for them for free, you know, and to hear them saying, I mean, no, I've got nothing for you at this time, you know, to just turn us away, you know, when I needed them the most. But that's the way it was, you know.
You know, I'm going to ask a very obvious question. I mean, we're talking, you know, early 60s, early 1970. A lot of, I mean, it's still very racist, you know, everywhere in the world at different, you know, points. It's not a lie. But do you think there was any racist motives? Because you really were the most famous indigenous band in the world at that time.
Yes. It would have been #1 if it wasn't for that nightclub incident with Lolly and the broken hand. We'd have been #1 for sure, and our music would have grown, and it would have been an explosion of music, great music. But it stopped us in our tracks, and I think it was intended to do that, to stop us.
Yeah,
I don't think it was. I don't think it was a thing that happened by accident.
No,
I think it was a setup, because we were right on the verge, and then that happened, and it just
Yeah.
Pulled the rug out from under us.
Right. And it's just very extreme, isn't it? You were already at the #1 peaking point. So, okay, you missed a meeting, he got in a fight, but there'll be somebody else waiting to snap you up because they would want the fame and the glory of having you guys, you know? So it's very, very peculiar. Anyway, let's move along a little bit from that. Did you get to play Europe? Oh, my love, you got bounced off of Zoom. He got bounced off, ladles and jelly beans. Wow. Let's see if he comes back. If you out there watching, if you would like a part 2 of the interview to continue with the lovely Pat Vega, isn't it great? I mean, imagine being able to listen from the horse's mouth, the great Pat Vegas and the great band Redbone and the people that he worked with, Jimi Hendrix and Tina Turner. And it's very exciting to get the finer details of people who were actually there. If you would like to leave in the comments questions that we didn't get to today that I haven't asked, I'm sure he would love to come back and answer those questions. And in the meantime, let me tell you to go underneath this broadcast and scroll down. And I am going to, oh, here he is. Oh, good. I'm so glad he's bouncing back. 1 second. Hello. So yes, so scroll down and there's going to be his YouTube channel. You'll get to get connected. You'll get access to his music. And it's just amazing. And I've been, like I told you, I've been listening to it. I've been listening to his tracks and it's just unreal, you know, for that much talent in one man to keep going all of these years. So I think there's still some technical issues. We had technical issues last time as well. But he's managed beautifully. So like I said, let's go ahead, you guys, and send us your questions. And we will definitely see you soon. My name is Dani Henderson. It has been my honor to interview the legend, Pat Vegas, from the group Redbone. Aho.